It's time for another road trip range test. Today's contestant is the Volvo C40. This is the coupified version of the XC40 Recharge. Just to recap what the range test is all about, it's a 246-mile loop. It's a combination of interstate highway driving, country highway driving, and then there's a mountain pass tossed in just for good measure. I think this is a realistic, real-world example of the kind of range you could expect out of your EV if you're going off to visit a family member, or say you just wanted to head over to the national park. As we roll through the footage of the C40 during this test, let's talk about what the C40 is and how it compares mileage-wise to the XC40. According to the EPA, you'll get 226 miles of combined range, so definitely a problem on a 246-mile road trip, versus 223 in the XC40. You get 3 extra miles because it's more coupe-shaped, it's a little bit more aerodynamic. As you'd expect out of a more aerodynamic profile, the range improvement on the C40 really happens on the highway, not in the city. So on the highway cycle, according to the EPA, we get 199 miles out of a regular XC40 Recharge, 206 out of a C40 Recharge, so a bit more of an improvement, 7 miles there. Not a huge difference, of course. Now let's get to the numbers. Obviously, I could not complete this drive loop on one charge, so I stopped at 182 miles. I had 14% of the battery remaining, and I was averaging 2.79 miles per kilowatt hour. Oddly enough, not much more efficient than a Rivian R1T that did that exact same loop a few weeks later and weighs 7,100 pounds, so quite a bit more than the C40. After the DC fast charge, I completed the 246-mile loop and ended up, interestingly, still averaging 2.79 miles per kilowatt hour. That gives this a real-world range of 208 miles on this particular test. So pretty in line, actually, with the EPA number, beating it very slightly for highway range. Remember, highway range is 206 miles on the C40. I got 208 miles on this particular range test. Both of those are, of course, below the combined score, according to the EPA, because that is including city fuel economy, and city driving is generally going to be a lot easier on an EV, a lot less wind resistance. Now, about that stop, I stopped and I charged to 65% in 24 minutes. I think this is also a good example of a real-world road trip range test. That 24 minutes of charging got me enough of a charge that I got back to my destination and still had 79 miles of range left. So in a real-world situation where you needed to do a 250-mile approximate journey, it really is not a huge inconvenience to stop and charge. And I needed to go to the bathroom anyway, to be perfectly honest, at this point in time. So in that very quick window, I could have had enough time just in a 10-minute charge to complete the journey. But thankfully, the car's software was smart enough to say you want to get to your destination and still have a little bit of battery left over. That ended up being a good thing because I needed the extra range a little bit later in the day. I was at 65%, and then when I got to my destination after 246 miles, I still had 36% of the battery left. But let's get back to the numbers, because I do find efficiency in the C40 and the related XC40 on the disappointing side of things. Getting just over 200 miles of range on a road trip is significantly below a lot of modern EVs, whether we're talking about mainstream EVs like a Kia EV6 or Ford Mustang Mach-E, or luxury EVs like a Genesis GV60, which does post higher efficiency ratings. Again, even the Rivian R1T posted very similar numbers here, and we're talking about a much bigger and much heavier pickup truck, not an electric sedan or a small electric crossover. And the C40, it's sized like a BMW X2. It's a subcompact luxury crossover, and a BMW iX, which is a much, much bigger vehicle, much more powerful, etc., it managed to beat the Volvo C40 when it came to efficiency as well. So hopefully this is something that's addressed in the next generation of Volvo's electric vehicles, but I would also love to see them implement some changes to perhaps the motor system or motor control systems in the C40. I would love to see them do something like a disconnectable motor pack, so that way the vehicle could be put in an eco mode, doesn't use one of the motors when you don't need to on a longer road trip. All those things would probably help improve range. Let me know what you think about all that down there in the comments section below. And of course, check out the video of the C40, because I love everything else about the C40, but its efficiency, this is definitely a pain point for this particular model. If you aren't planning on doing road trips, probably not going to be a problem for you, although keep in mind, driving is going to be more expensive because it's going to be using more energy to get you the same distance. But if you are planning on taking road trips, I would probably choose something else at the moment. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Check out all the related videos on the channel. Hit me up on the other channels as well. There are probably links down there in the description, and I'll see all of you later.